What if the very foundation of the modern British state was constructed upon a meticulously crafted deception? One so absolute that its unraveling today would force us into rethinking reality entirely. For the dedicated history enthusiast, the prospect of unearthing the suppressed whispers of the Tudor court is more than a mere academic exercise. It is a thrilling journey into a shadow world. This exploration of a path not taken, a reality where the Tudor lies were preserved rather than purged, is a narrative experience that is absolutely worth the wait. The year is 2024. During a routine seismic survey beneath the foundations of the old Treasury building in Whitehall, engineers stumbled upon a structural anomaly, a lead-lined vault, untouched for 5 centuries. This was the sealed vault of the Tudor dynasty, a repository of secrets so volatile that Henry VIII himself had ordered them entombed in stone and silence. As the heavy seals were broken, the air of the 16th century, stale, metallic, and heavy with the scent of ancient parchment, rushed out to meet a world unprepared for its contents. Imagine the cinematic tension as historians realize they are looking at the black ciphers, the unredacted personal correspondence of the king and his fixers. We are witnessing a shocking pivot in our understanding of the great matter. In our timeline, we accept the narrative of a king driven by a desire for a male heir and the love of Boleyn. But what if the vault reveals a different truth? What if the break from Rome was a desperate smoke screen to hide a legal and genetic crisis that would have rendered the Tudor line illegitimate from its inception? This discovery demands that we confront the weight of the path not taken. In our reality, the Tudors are the architects of the English Reformation and the Golden Age. In this alternate revelation, they are a family of survivors clinging to power through a web of high-stakes forgery and state-sanctioned disappearance. The atmosphere of this discovery is electric, a collision between the cold, analytical tools of modern forensics and the visceral, bloody intrigues of the past. As we peel back the layers of this 500-year-old silence, we are not just reading history. We are witnessing the dismantling of a national myth. The truth buried within these walls suggests that the England we know is but a ghost, haunted by the secrets the Tudors tried to take to their graves. The air in the sterile high-security lab at Bletchley Park hummed with more than just the cooling fans of quantum processors. It vibrated with the realization that history was about to be rewritten. In our timeline, the great matter of Henry VIII was a bureaucratic slog through ecclesiastical courts. In this shocking pivot of a reality, the discovery of the Whitehall vault has provided us with the Rosetta Stone of the Tudor era, the King's Black Cipher. This was not the standard diplomatic code used by Thomas Cromwell or Cardinal Wolsey. This was Henry's private tongue, a terrifyingly complex system of symbols and numerical substitutions that suggests a mind far more calculating and visionary than the impulsive, lustful monarch portrayed in our textbooks. Cracking the cipher was a thrilling race against historical obsolescence. For weeks, the AI pattern struggled with what appeared to be nonsense, until a breakthrough revealed a layered polyalphabetic structure that predated modern cryptography by centuries. This wasn't just a diary, it was a shadow state ledger. The king, it seems, was rethinking reality even as he lived it, documenting a version of England that existed only in his private directives. The decrypted logs reveal that Henry's break with Rome wasn't a desperate gamble for a male heir, but a calculated strike in a hidden war involving an unseen European network. We are forced into a cinematic reimagining of the 1530s, not as a period of religious reformation, but as the birth of a clandestine global intelligence agency. The weight of the taken path hits like a physical blow. In our reality, we viewed Henry as a slave to his passions. These ciphers portray a man who was systematically dismantling the feudal world to create a new order centuries before the term were popularized. The most chilling entry, dated June 1536, bypasses the domestic tragedy of Boleyn's execution entirely, focusing instead on a silent compact with the Holy Roman Empire that would have effectively partitioned the known world into Tudor spheres of influence. This is history as we have never seen it, a thrilling, analytical dive into a mind that sought to control the narrative of time itself. As the screens flicker with newly translated text, the established reality of the Tudor dynasty begins to dissolve, replaced by a darker, more intricate web of power that threatens to void every legal precedent of the modern era. Imagine a seismic shift in the bedrock of Western civilization. For centuries, the narrative of the English Reformation has been anchored to a singular, desperate obsession: Henry VIII's quest for a male heir. We have been taught that the great matter, the king's high-stakes divorce from Catherine of Aragon, was a theological dispute over the legitimacy of a brother's widow. But as we peer through the lens of modern forensic analysis and the recently cracked black cipher, we are forced into a thrilling rethinking of reality. Was the royal divorce based on a calculated, state-sanctioned lie? The discovery of the Vatican Whitehall correspondence reveals a shocking pivot. The decrypted records suggest that the Levitical curse Henry cited was not a matter of genuine conscience, but a manufactured legal loophole designed to mask a deeper, more dangerous geopolitical maneuver. In this alternate realization of history, the divorce was a great deception, a surgical strike against the Holy Roman Empire's influence within the English court. Cinematic evidence recovered from the sealed vaults of the Privy Council indicates that Henry had already secured the Spanish succession via a secret protocol, making his public claims of a cursed marriage a deliberate piece of statecraft theater. The atmosphere of this revelation is nothing short of electric. Historians are now grappling with a world where the Church of England was born not from a spiritual awakening or a romantic whim, but from a cold, intelligence-led operation. This wasn't a king acting on impulse. It was a master of clandestine geopolitics orchestrating a new order. If the foundation of the royal divorce was a documented fraud, then every legal and religious structure that followed is cast into a haunting shadow of illegitimacy. The weight of the taken path versus our own reality is staggering. Had this evidence surfaced in 1533, the Tudor dynasty might have collapsed under the weight of its own fabrications. Instead, the secret was buried under 5 centuries of silence, waiting for the forensic tools of the 21st century to expose the truth. This is no longer just a historical inquiry. It is a profound interrogation of the lies that build empires. As we re-examine the great matter, we find a king who was less of a tyrant and more of a ghost in the machine, manipulating the very fabric of faith to secure a legacy built on a phantom premise. Deep within the climate-controlled vaults of the British Library, a discovery has emerged that forces a thrilling rethinking of reality. For 5 centuries, the bedrock of the English Reformation rested upon Catherine of Aragon's solemn oath that her marriage to Prince Arthur was never consummated. History portrayed her as the pious victim, a woman whose integrity stood against the tidal wave of Henry VIII's lust. But the newly unearthed Isabella correspondence, letters written in a desperate, frantic hand and concealed within the binding of a Flemish prayer book, reveals a shocking pivot in our understanding of the Tudor dynasty. The letters suggest that Catherine and Arthur did not merely share a bed. They shared a terrifying realization of Arthur's failing health and a secret political pact that would dictate the course of European history. This was not a marriage of mere ceremony, but a fully realized union that Catherine chose to redact from the record to preserve her status and the Spanish alliance. The cinematic implications are staggering. Picture the cold, stone walls of Ludlow Castle in 1502, where two teenagers, burdened by the weight of two empires, decided to fabricate a narrative of chastity to ensure Catherine remained on the English throne. This revelation shifts our perception of Catherine from a passive martyr to a master of statecraft who successfully deceived a king, a pope, and 500 years of historians. By rethinking reality through this lens, we see the great matter not as a theological debate over Levitical law, but as the fallout of a high-stakes gamble. If the marriage was indeed consummated, Henry's obsession with his conscience was ironically anchored in a truth that Catherine spent her life suppressing. The weight of this taken path is immense. It suggests that the Church of England was born from a lie so profound that its revelation today threatens to dissolve the very legal and spiritual framework of the British monarchy. As we peel back the layers of this 500-year-old silence, the image of the Spanish queen transforms. She was not the discarded wife of a tyrant, but the guardian of a secret that, if exposed in her time, would have rewritten the destiny of the Western world. We are left to grapple with a history that is far more complex, calculated, and thrilling than the one we were taught in school. In the shadowed, candlelit alcoves of Windsor Castle, a ghost lingers, not of a man who failed, but of a king who was systematically erased. Henry Fitzroy, the Duke of Richmond, stands as history's most tantalizing almost. As the only acknowledged illegitimate son of Henry VIII, Fitzroy was more than a royal byproduct. He was a strategic contingency. For the modern observer, rethinking reality begins with a single harrowing question. What if the hidden heir had lived to see the autumn of 1536? Our journey into this shocking pivot starts with the rediscovery of the Richmond Protocols, a series of suppressed legal drafts discovered behind a false panel in the National Archives. These documents suggest that Henry VIII was not merely considering legitimizing his son. He was actively architecting a Fitzroy succession. The atmosphere of the 1530s was one of suffocating desperation. With Catherine of Aragon cast aside and in Boleyn's head falling to the executioner's sword, the king's obsession with a male legacy reached a fever pitch. In this alternate timeline, we envision a cinematic shift where the pulmonary affliction that allegedly claimed the 17-year-old Duke was not a natural end, but a state-sponsored disappearance, or perhaps a recovery that the Seymour faction couldn't afford to acknowledge. Imagine the thrilling political theater of a legitimized king, Henry IX. The weight of the taken path is immense. Had Fitzroy ascended, the bloody religious pendulums of Mary I and the long, precarious reign of Elizabeth I would have been rendered impossible. Instead of a virgin queen, England would have seen a Fitzroy dynasty, a lineage born of the king's blood, but outside the sanctified bounds of his disastrous marriages. This revelation challenges the very foundation of the British monarchy, suggesting that the Tudor line was deliberately pruned to favor legitimate chaos over illegitimate stability. The forensic analysis of these hidden decrees paints a portrait of a king who, in his final years, trusted his base-born son more than the daughters, who would eventually define his legacy. This is the heart of our historical inquiry. The realization that the world we inhabit is the result of a single fragile heartbeat in 1536. Had Fitzroy taken the throne, the geopolitical map of Europe and the divine right of the current Windsors would be an unrecognizable fiction. The air inside the forensic lab at the Tower of London is thick with the scent of ozone and ancient dust. Here, under the harsh glare of ultraviolet light, the most infamous trial in English history is being systematically dismantled. In our reality, and Boleyn's guilt has been a subject of debate for centuries, but in this shocking pivot of historical discovery, modern science has provided the smoking gun. We are rethinking reality as the Cromwellian dossier is finally unsealed. Using hyperspectral imaging, researchers have uncovered a layer of ghost text beneath the official trial records. These are not mere clerical errors. They are deliberate, cold-blooded erasures. The forensic data reveals that the dates of Anne's alleged infidelities were physically altered months after the documents were drafted. Even more chilling is the molecular analysis of Mark Smeaton's signed confession. Spectroscopic results show trace amounts of metallic contaminants consistent with the specific torture implements used in the tower's subterranean chambers, proving the document was signed in a state of physical collapse. This is more than a thrilling academic exercise. It is a total indictment of the Tudor legal system. The data suggests a state-sponsored frame job, so precise it would make a modern intelligence agency blush. As we zoom in on the microscopic fibers of the parchment, we see the jagged, trembling ink strokes of a queen who knew her fate was sealed not by her actions, but by a king's desperate need for a male heir. This forensic proof shatters the narrative of the just king Henry VIII, painting him instead as the architect of a legal massacre. If the trial was a fabrication, then every subsequent act of the Tudor succession, the rise of the Seymours, the stripping of Elizabeth's legitimacy, rests on a foundation of perjury and blood. The weight of this discovery is staggering. It forces us to confront a terrifying truth. The England we know was built upon a meticulously crafted lie. We are no longer looking at a tragic romance. We are witnessing the cold, calculated deletion of a woman's life to facilitate a political pivot. The forensic evidence demands a posthumous exoneration that would, in this alternate timeline, trigger a constitutional crisis of unprecedented proportions. As we peer through the lens of rethinking reality, the traditional image of Jane Seymour as the meek and mild savior of the Tudor line dissolves into something far more predatory. Modern forensic analysis of the Seymour family's private estate papers, recently unearthed from a hidden cavity in Wolf Hall, suggests a shocking pivot in our understanding of the mid-16th century. This was not merely a family seeking royal favor. This was a shadowed dynasty in waiting, executing a thrilling, multi-generational coup designed to extinguish the Tudor name entirely. The documents, written in a sophisticated familial cipher, reveal that Edward and Thomas Seymour viewed King Henry VIII not as a master, but as a biological vessel whose utility ended once a male heir was secured. This alternate history suggests that the Seymours had prepared a shadow cabinet to seize total control long before Henry's health began its terminal decline. In this chilling narrative, Jane Seymour was the centerpiece of a high-stakes gamble, a Trojan horse placed in the royal bedchamber to dismantle the influence of the Boleyns and the Howards alike. The depth of their ambition is truly staggering. Evidence now hints at a secret pact with the French court, where the Seymours allegedly offered to trade English territorial claims for continental support of a Seymour-led regency that would eventually bypass Mary and Elizabeth altogether. Imagine a world where the Virgin Queen never ascended, replaced instead by a Seymour autocracy that prioritized mercantile expansion over religious reformation. This shocking pivot from established history forces us to confront the fragility of the Tudor mythos. The Seymours were the ultimate architects of ambition, nearly succeeding in a quiet revolution that would have rewritten the genetic and political map of Europe. Their conspiracy was a masterclass in Machiavellian patience, proving that the most dangerous enemies are those who stand closest to the throne, waiting for the heartbeat of a dynasty to falter. By examining the what-if of a Seymour victory, we see a much darker, more pragmatic England emerging from the shadows of the 1540s, one where the crown was merely a prize to be traded among the most ruthless of the new nobility. This discovery fundamentally alters our perception of the Edwardian era, transforming it from a period of religious flux into the final battleground for the very soul of the English monarchy. The historical record is often treated as a monolith, a series of immovable pillars upon which our identity is built. Yet, the recent unearthing of the Blackfriars manuscript offers a thrilling departure from this certainty, forcing a total rethinking reality regarding the Tudor succession. For centuries, we believed the male line of Henry VIII ended with a frail Edward VI. However, new forensic analysis of private correspondence between the Earl of Hertford and a clandestine network of wet nurses in the Welsh marches reveals a shocking pivot: the existence of a third legitimate male heir, hidden from the public, to serve as a dynastic insurance policy. This lost prince, identified in the records as Henry of Richmond Seymour, represents the ultimate what-if in the English narrative. Imagine the cinematic tension of 1553. While the world watched the tragic rise and fall of Lady Jane Grey, a young man with a superior claim was being educated in a fortified manner, his existence scrubbed from official annals to protect him from the very family that sought to control the throne. This revelation challenges the legitimacy of both Mary I and Elizabeth I, suggesting that the entire Golden Age was predicated on the suppression of the rightful king. The weight of this taken path is staggering. Had this prince emerged, the religious wars that defined the late 16th century might have been averted by a unified, male-led Protestant monarchy, potentially preventing the rise of the Stuart dynasty and the subsequent English Civil War. The atmosphere of this alternate world is one of missed opportunities and shadowed truths. We are forced to confront a history where the Virgin Queen was not a symbol of stability, but a placeholder for a hidden brother whose life was sacrificed at the altar of political expediency. As we examine the DNA evidence found in the lead-lined caches of the Hampshire estate, we are not just looking at old parchment. We are witnessing the collapse of a 500-year-old deception that changes everything we thought we knew about the power of the bloodline. This newly uncovered heir provides a lens through which we must reevaluate every political maneuver of the 1550s, revealing a shadow court that operated with chilling efficiency to maintain the status quo at any cost. The year 1555 stands as a chilling monument to desperation within the shadowed corridors of Hampton Court. We have long accepted the traditional narrative. Mary I, the Bloody Queen, withered under the weight of a phantom pregnancy, a tragic biological farce fueled by religious fervor, and a loveless marriage to Philip of Spain. However, the recent discovery of the Cisneros casket beneath the ancient stones of the Chapel Royal forces a shocking pivot in our understanding of the Tudor timeline. Inside, forensic historians discovered not an empty void, but a collection of silver-bound medical journals and a desiccated lock of hair that defies the phantom label entirely. Rethinking reality requires us to look past the propaganda of the Elizabethan victors who sought to paint Mary as a delusional hysteric. Modern DNA sequencing and spectrographic analysis of these artifacts suggest that Mary did not suffer a mere psychological delusion. Instead, the evidence points to a hidden term, a child born with severe, life-limiting chromosomal anomalies, surviving only a few agonizing hours, but long enough to have been legally recognized as the infant king of England. This revelation is thrilling and terrifying in its implications. Had the child survived even a year, the Spanish Habsburgs would have consolidated a Catholic empire stretching from London to Lima, effectively erasing the English Reformation and the rise of the British Empire before they could take root. The narrative we've been fed, that of a broken woman imagining a belly full of air, was a calculated state fabrication. Why? Because the truth of a legitimate, albeit short-lived, Catholic heir would have rendered Elizabeth's subsequent claim not just controversial, but legally and divinely void. By examining the secret correspondence between Mary's personal physician and the Vatican, we see a frantic, high-stakes effort to suppress the birth of what they termed a monstrous heir to protect the crown from total Spanish annexation. This is the ultimate historical haunting. As we peel back the layers of this 500-year-old medical mystery, the cinematic detail of Mary's final days takes on a new, somber light. She wasn't a victim of her own failing mind, but a prisoner of a political machine that chose to narrate her motherhood as a madness. This discovery forces a total re-evaluation of the entire Tudor succession. We are left staring into the abyss of an alternate world where the Virgin Queen never ascended, and the British Isles remained a mere province of the Spanish crown. The weight of this taken path suggests that our modern world was built on a foundation of strategically buried royal secrets. The myth of the Virgin Queen has long been the historical cornerstone of English identity, yet the recent unearthing of the Leicester cache has forced a rethinking of reality so profound it borders on the architectural. For centuries, scholars maintained that Elizabeth I's refusal to marry was a calculated political sacrifice for the stability of her realm. However, Section 10 of our investigation dives into the digital reconstruction of the Dudley casket, a hidden trove of private correspondence that presents a thrilling and terrifyingly different narrative. Coded in a complex cipher previously dismissed as mere courtly poetry, these missives reveal a shocking pivot. Elizabeth I was not merely enamored with Robert Dudley. She was his secret partner in a high-stakes game of survival that nearly incinerated the Tudor line. The atmosphere of this alternate world is one of suffocating shadows and cinematic tension. Imagine the hallowed halls of Whitehall not as a center of enlightenment, but as a labyrinth of blackmail. The forensic analysis of the infamous September letter provides a chilling glimpse into the moments following the mysterious death of Dudley's wife, Amy Robsart. While traditional history books speak of a tragic accidental fall, these newly decrypted pages whisper of a calculated removal, explicitly sanctioned by a queen who was willing to risk a civil war for the man she called her eyes. This discovery forces us into an immersive examination of the taken path versus our own reality. Had these letters been intercepted by the Cecil faction in 1560, the Protestant settlement would have collapsed under the weight of an irrecoverable moral scandal, likely inviting a Spanish-backed Catholic resurgence decades before the Armada ever sailed. We are forced to view the Golden Age as a fragile facade held together by the threat of mutual destruction. Today, as we peer through the lens of modern forensic linguistics, we realize that the Gloriana persona was the greatest masterclass in propaganda ever executed. The Robert Dudley scandal, once a footnote of courtly gossip, now stands as the smoking gun of a hidden monarchy. This isn't just a discovery. It is a dismantling of the British foundation, revealing a sovereign who was dangerously human and a throne built upon a foundation of illicit, state-sanctioned silence. The myth of Elizabeth I, the Gloriana of the English Renaissance, has long relied upon the untouchable sanctity of her physical form. However, Section 11 of our investigation brings us to the most thrilling discovery in modern historiography: the deciphering of the Hatfield medical ledger. This is not merely a collection of apothecary receipts. It is a clinical roadmap to a shocking pivot in our understanding of the Tudor dynasty. When modern forensic teams applied multispectral imaging to the parchment, they uncovered hidden notations by Dr. John Dee that provide a profound rethinking of reality. The entries from the autumn of 1562, long dismissed as a severe bout of smallpox, reveal a far more complex biological event. The chemical signatures of specific postpartum herbs and the repeated mention of a secreted burden suggest that the Virgin Queen's most famous title was a calculated, state-manufactured deception. Imagine the weight of this alternative path. Had the English public known their queen had birthed a child in secret, the religious and political fires of the 16th century would have consumed the nation. This revelation forces us into an immersive, historical reevaluation. The Golden Age was not a period of chaste stability, but a masterclass in clandestine management and narrative control. We are looking at a shadow history where the throne was occupied by a woman whose very existence challenged the patriarchal foundations of the era through a hidden matrilineal line. This evidence suggests that the state went to terrifying lengths to preserve the image of the Vestal Virgin, including the strategic silencing of witnesses and the systematic scrubbing of royal health records. The medical evidence points toward a secret heir whose existence would render the subsequent Stuart succession legally questionable and historically fraudulent. As we peel back the layers of this 500-year-old silence, the cinematic gravity of the deception becomes clear. We are not just reading records. We are witnessing the dismantling of an empire's founding myth. The Virgin Queen deception is the ultimate proof that the most powerful weapon in the Tudor arsenal was not the English Navy, but the total control of the Queen's biological narrative. By exposing these records, we finally confront the reality that the Elizabethan era was built upon a medical lie of unprecedented proportions. In the dimly lit, moisture-heavy recesses of the Simancas archives, a discovery has emerged that forces a shocking pivot in our understanding of the Elizabethan security state. For centuries, we believed Sir Francis Walsingham's watchers were an impenetrable shield, yet newly unearthed shadow files reveal a terrifying reality. The heart of the Privy Council was hemorrhaging secrets to the Spanish crown for over 2 decades. This was not the work of a disgruntled clerk or a lowly courier, but a clandestine operation orchestrated by a figure so close to the Queen that their betrayal feels like a reimagined nightmare. Rethinking reality requires us to look at the coded ledger of the Swallow, a series of microscripts hidden within seemingly mundane trade reports. The forensic evidence points toward a devastating conclusion. The spy was not a foreign agent, but a trusted advisor, Lord Thomas Anege, whose unfettered access to the Queen's private chambers and the Council's most sensitive correspondence allowed for the systematic theft of England's most vital naval blueprints and diplomatic ciphers. Imagine the chilling atmosphere of the 1580s if this truth had surfaced then. The Golden Age would have disintegrated instantly into a sea of executioners' axes and absolute paranoia. This thrilling revelation suggests that the Spanish Armada's failure was not merely a matter of English naval brilliance or a providential Protestant wind, but a calculated delay by a double agent playing a much longer, more dangerous game of geopolitical chess. The what-if of this scenario is staggering. If King Philip II had possessed the strategic courage to act immediately on Hanege's precise data regarding the vulnerabilities of the Thames coastal defenses, the Tudor line would have ended not in a peaceful succession, but in a Spanish-occupied London. Our own reality, where Elizabeth stands as the defiant victor of 1588, suddenly feels like a fragile accident of history. This cinematic betrayal paints a picture of a court where every whispered secret was recorded by the Spanish ambassador before the ink on the original parchment had even dried. We are forced to confront a shocking pivot. The Elizabethan state was not a bastion of sovereign strength, but a hollowed-out shell, survived only by the grace of Spanish indecision. This discovery doesn't just add a footnote to history. It demands a total reconstruction of the Tudor mythos, exposing the Virgin Queen's inner circle as a nest of vipers fueled by Iberian gold. Imagine the chilling silence of the National Archives as a false-bottom chest from the 1530s is finally opened by modern forensic historians. Within lies the Ghost Ledger, a document Thomas Cromwell intended to burn before his execution. While official accounts showed Henry VIII's coffers swelling with the spoils of the dissolution, This secret record unveils a shocking pivot in our understanding of the Tudor economy. We are rethinking reality. The gold from the monasteries did not just vanish into the king's vanity projects or his wars with France. Instead, it was systematically siphoned into an offshore network of Flemish banks and clandestine London trusts, creating a shadow treasury. This thrilling discovery suggests Cromwell was not just a loyal minister, but the architect of a sovereign wealth fund that operated entirely beyond the crown's reach. In this alternate history, we see the taken path, where the British middle class did not emerge from slow social evolution, but from a deliberate, high-stakes injection of laundered ecclesiastical wealth. The atmosphere of 1539 is recast as a cinematic heist of an entire nation's spiritual capital, orchestrated by a man who saw the future of global finance centuries before his peers. Had this ledger surfaced in 1540, the Towers Acts would have been the least of Cromwell's worries. He would have been exposed as the genius who effectively privatized the English Reformation. The weight of this revelation is staggering, challenging the very legitimacy of the Tudor state. It suggests that the maritime expansion of the 17th century was actually seeded by the molten gold of melted-down shrines, hidden for decades in the shadows of the ghost ledger. We are forced to confront a reality where the very foundations of modern capitalism were built on a foundation of holy artifacts converted into cold, hard, untraceable currency. This is not just a footnote in a history book. It is a seismic shift in how we perceive the origin of the modern world's economic power. The ledger reveals that while Henry VIII played at being a medieval king, Cromwell was busy engineering the first modern financial empire using the ghosts of England's past as collateral. Imagine a sterile laboratory in the 21st century where the clinical precision of modern toxicology meets the dust of a 500-year-old royal crypt. For centuries, the history books recorded the demise of King Edward VI as a tragic, if inevitable, consequence of a frail constitution, a boy king consumed by the sweating sickness or a galloping consumption. But Section 14 of our investigation, The Poison Cup, presents a shocking pivot that is rethinking reality for historians worldwide. When modern forensic teams were granted unprecedented access to the royal remains, they didn't just find the remnants of a sickly teenager. They found a chemical crime scene that suggests a thrilling, calculated assassination. The autopsy revealed concentrated levels of arsenic and mercury embedded in the keratin of the king's hair and nails, indicating a slow, methodical administration of toxins over the final 6 months of his life. This discovery transforms Edward's reign from a mere transitional period into a cinematic struggle for the soul of England. We are forced to look at the Privy Council not as a group of advisors, but as a nest of vipers. Was the Duke of Northumberland merely a power-hungry regent, or was he a desperate man trying to accelerate a radical Protestant agenda before the king could reach his majority? The atmosphere of the 1550s court, once seen as a place of pious prayer, now feels like a high-stakes thriller where every silver goblet was a potential death sentence. This narrative shift is profound. If Edward had not been systematically removed, the bloody reign of Mary I might never have occurred, and the religious landscape of Europe would be unrecognizable today. The revelation of the poison cup serves as a chilling reminder that the path of history is often dictated by a few drops of arsenic rather than the will of the people. As we examine the modern legal implications of this state-sponsored regicide, we see the weight of the taken path pressing against our own reality. This isn't just a cold case. It is a fundamental reordering of the Tudor mythos, proving that the boy king was not a victim of his body, but a target of a sophisticated shadow government conspiracy that successfully rewrote the records of his death until now. In the cold, sterile light of a modern forensic laboratory, The ghost of Mary Boleyn has finally emerged from the suffocating shadow of the scaffold. For 5 centuries, history relegated the other Boleyn girl to a mere footnote, a cautionary tale of a discarded mistress. However, a thrilling discovery in a forgotten archive at Knowle House has sparked a shocking pivot in our understanding of the Tudor bloodline. A concealed compartment within a velvet-lined casket revealed the Carey codicil, a document hand-signed by Henry VIII himself, which suggests a private acknowledgement of his paternity regarding Catherine and Henry Carey. This is not merely a genealogical curiosity. It is a rethinking of reality that threatens to dismantle the foundation of the British monarchy. By utilizing high-resolution DNA sequencing on the remains of Mary's descendants, scientists have traced a direct, unbroken line to a family living quietly in the English countryside today. In this immersive alternate history, we confront a cinematic revelation. While Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, died childless, the Tudor fire continued to burn through the clandestine lineage of her cousins. The air in the documentary archive grows heavy with the weight of what might have been. Had these documents surfaced during the Elizabethan era, the Carey line, the Shadow Tudors, could have claimed the throne, potentially preventing the Stuart succession and the bloody civil wars that followed. This analytical deep dive into the Boleyn DNA forces us to look at the modern royal family through a different lens, realizing that the rightful heirs might be walking among us, entirely unaware of their explosive heritage. We are left staring at a genetic map that redraws the history of Europe itself, proving that the secrets of the past are never truly buried. They are merely waiting for the right technology to drag them into the light of the 21st century. The implications are staggering, turning a historical mystery into a modern legal and political crisis of unprecedented proportions. The year 1520 is etched into our collective memory as the Field of the Cloth of Gold, a flamboyant display of Renaissance ego where King Henry VIII and King Francis I wrestled for dominance. However, the discovery of the Dangling protocols in a forgotten sub-basement of the Chateau de Fontainebleau forces a thrilling rethinking of reality. This was no mere diplomatic summit. It was the birthplace of a shocking pivot in European history. We must now confront a narrative where the English Reformation was not a divine quest for a male heir, but a strategic maneuver orchestrated by the French crown to sever London's ties with the Holy Roman Empire. The cinematic detail of these newly uncovered journals paints a picture of Francis I as a master puppeteer, while history remembers Henry as the boisterous architect of his own destiny. The protocols suggest a darker truth, a clandestine financial arrangement that bound the Tudor treasury to Valois interests. Imagine the weight of this revelation. Henry VIII, the quintessential English lion, may have been a subsidized vassal of his greatest rival. This realization demands a rigorous re-examination of the Anne Boleyn years. And who was raised in the French court and served Queen Claude, was not merely a romantic obsession. Through the lens of the French Pact, she appears as a sophisticated agent of influence, a Gallican weapon deployed to ensure the break with Rome benefited Paris as much as it did the king's bedchamber. The atmosphere of the Henrician court shifts from one of domestic melodrama to high-stakes international espionage. In our reality, we viewed the divorce from Catherine of Aragon as a solitary act of defiance. In this alternate trajectory, it was a synchronized strike by the Valois-Tudor alliance to dismantle the Habsburg hegemony. This shocking pivot reframes every execution, every prayer book revision, and every naval skirmish of the 1530s as a move on a French-controlled chessboard. By rethinking reality through these documents, the taken path of English independence begins to crumble, revealing a hidden dependency that would have horrified the English populace of the time. The French Pact reminds us that history is often a grand masquerade, where the most powerful actors are those whispering from the shadows, holding the purse strings of an empire. The damp air of the Tower of London in February 1554 was more than a physical chill. It was the breath of an ending dynasty. While history remembers Lady Jane Grey as the 9-Day Queen, a tragic, scholarly puppet of the Dudley family, the recent discovery of the Grey Codicil at Bradgate Park demands a shocking pivot in our understanding of the Tudor succession. This wasn't merely a teenager's final prayer. It was a sophisticated legal strike, a final command that threatens to dismantle 5 centuries of British sovereign legitimacy. Imagine the cinematic tension of Jane's final hours. As she watched her husband, Guilford Dudley, being led to the block, she was not merely weeping, she was writing. Rethinking reality through this lens, we see Jane not as a victim, but as a brilliant constitutional architect. The codicil, hidden for centuries behind a false hearth, invokes King Edward VI's devise for the succession with a terrifying precision. It explicitly strips Mary and Elizabeth of their royal status, citing their previous declarations of illegitimacy as an irrevocable bar to the throne. The thrilling weight of this document lies in its specific instructions to the Protestant underground. Jane did not abdicate. Instead, she commanded a shadow council to preserve the Reformation from the idolatry of the Catholic Mary. This wasn't just a lost will. It was a blueprint for a government in exile. In our reality, the Tudor mythos is built on the triumph of Elizabeth I. But in the presence of this lost command, the Elizabethan age begins to look like a brilliant, yet legally fraudulent interregnum. The atmospheric detail of the parchment itself, stained with what forensic analysts confirm are Jane's own tears and ink composed of crushed soot, paints a portrait of a queen who knew her life was forfeit but intended her law to outlive her. If Jane's final command had been delivered to the London crowds, the Marian persecutions might never have occurred, and the English Civil War might have ignited a century early. We are forced into a radical rethinking of reality. Was the golden age of Elizabeth actually a magnificent era of usurpation? The discovery of Jane's final command doesn't just add a footnote to history. It places a fracture in the very foundation of the British crown, inviting us to wonder if the rightful line ended on a scaffold in 1554. Deep within the labyrinthine corridors of the Archivio Apostolico Vaticano, beneath centuries of limestone and silence, lies a dossier labeled simply Causa Anglica. For 500 years, this collection remained under the highest seal of papal secrecy, protected by an oath that promised excommunication for any who dared whisper its contents. Today, as digital decryption meets Renaissance parchment, we are forced into a thrilling rethinking of reality. The Vatican's files reveal that the papacy wasn't merely a passive observer of the Tudor succession. They were the architects of a shadow history that, if revealed in 1558, would have fundamentally dismantled the English throne. The shocking pivot centers on a series of letters between Pope Clement VII and his legates that suggest a secret, preemptive annulment of Henry VIII's marriage to Boleyn had been drafted even before her execution. More explosive still is evidence that the Vatican held proof of a clandestine contract of pre-contract involving Henry and a noblewoman that predated Jane Seymour, potentially rendering every subsequent royal birth, including that of Elizabeth I, legally void under canon law. This wasn't just theological posturing. It was a geopolitical weapon of mass destruction. In this cinematic alternate reality, we must imagine an Elizabeth I who reigned not as a glorious virgin, but as a fugitive from a papal decree that the world was never allowed to see. The documents suggest that Rome deliberately suppressed this evidence, not to protect the Tudors, but to hold it as blackmail over the English crown for decades. Had these files been leaked during the height of the Spanish Armada's approach, the moral and legal justification for a Catholic uprising in England would have been absolute. The Virgin Queen would have been stripped of her title by the very laws of God her father sought to circumvent. As we analyze these brittle pages today, the weight of the taken path becomes agonizingly clear. Our understanding of the Elizabethan Golden Age is cast into shadow, replaced by the realization that the entire Protestant Reformation in England hung by a thread of papal discretion. This discovery doesn't just add a footnote to history. It forces a total restructuring of the Tudor legacy. We are left staring at a reality where the throne was occupied by a line the entire civilized world knew to be illegitimate, yet chose to endure for the sake of a fragile global peace. In the flickering candlelight of Mortlake, Dr. John Dee, mathematician, astronomer, and magus, hunched over a polished obsidian mirror. History long dismissed him as the eccentric sorcerer of Elizabeth I's court, a man lost in the pursuit of Enochian, the supposed language of angels. However, a thrilling modern breakthrough has forced a shocking pivot in our understanding of the Elizabethan age. The discovery of the Ether Lexicon, a hidden manuscript found within the walls of a derelict manor in Surrey, suggests that Dee was not conjuring spirits, but rather architecting the world's first unbreakable cryptographic system. Rethinking reality becomes a necessity when we examine these texts through the lens of modern digital forensics. The angelic visions reported by Dee's associate, Edward Kelly, were not hallucinatory religious experiences. They were rhythmic, phonetic transmissions of a sophisticated code. This alternate perspective reveals Elizabeth's court as the epicenter of a shadow world intelligence network that operated with a chilling efficiency. The Enochian tongue was the secret language of the state, a cipher so advanced that it predates modern public key cryptography by 4 centuries. Imagine the cinematic tension of an Elizabethan spy deep within the Spanish court, receiving a message composed of celestial symbols. To the Inquisition, it appeared as mere heresy or madness. To the English crown, it was a precise report on the movement of the Armada. This narrative lens transforms our view of the Tudor expansion. The British Empire was not just built on timber and sail, but on an occult-tinted information monopoly. The weight of this taken path is staggering. While our history books focus on the Protestant-Catholic divide, the reality of the Shadow Court suggests a war fought in the invisible realms of data and signals. The shocking pivot here is the realization that Dr. John Dee was the 16th century equivalent of an NSA director. By blending the mystical with the mathematical, he created a veil that kept England's enemies in the dark while the Queen saw everything through her 007. The very signature Dee used to sign his private reports. Today, as we analyze these Tudor secrets, we are forced to confront a reality where magic was the ultimate cover for the highest form of statecraft. The Elizabethan occult was never about the supernatural. It was the birth of the surveillance state, hidden in plain sight beneath a layer of angelic whispers. In the sterile, climate-controlled labs of the National Portrait Gallery, a thrilling advancement in multispectral imaging has forced a complete rethinking reality of the Tudor era. For 5 centuries, the iconic portraits of the Elizabethan age were viewed as the pinnacle of royal branding, static images of power and divine right. However, Section 20 of our investigation reveals a shocking pivot hidden beneath the lead white pigment and vermilion glazes. When the famous Ditchley portrait was subjected to high-energy X-ray fluorescence, the scan pierced through layers of propaganda to reveal a haunting original composition. Elizabeth I was not originally painted alone. The underpainting depicts the Queen with a young child, his features unmistakably Tudor, resting a small hand upon the sovereign's orb. This find is not merely an artistic revision. It is a seismic shift in the historical record. If the Virgin Queen was originally documented with an heir, the entire narrative of the Elizabethan settlement collapses. The psychological weight of this discovery suggests a reality where the succession was not a desperate gamble, but a suppressed certainty. It implies a high-level state conspiracy to erase a legitimate claimant from the visual record, transforming the Queen's public persona from mother to metaphorical deity. The cinematic detail revealed by the X-rays, the ghost-like strokes of a tiny crown, later painted over with the folds of a heavy velvet gown, paints a picture of a court in crisis. Why was this child scrubbed from history? Analysts suggest that the factionalism within the Privy Council reached such a fever pitch that the mere existence of a biological heir was deemed more dangerous than a childless void. As we stare into the digitized layers of a canvas, the taken path of our history books feels increasingly like a carefully constructed fiction. We are no longer looking at art. We are looking at the crime scene of a stolen dynasty. This revelation forces us to question every other image in the royal canon. If Elizabeth's identity was a curated lie, then the very foundations of the British state are built upon a palimpsest of deception, where the truth was only a brushstroke away from being forgotten forever. In the dusty, climate-controlled silence of the British Library's newest restricted wing, a shocking pivot in historical scholarship has occurred. For centuries, William Shakespeare was the singular titan of literature, the voice of the human soul. But the discovery of the Walsingham Ledger, a nondescript, vellum-bound book hidden behind the wainscoting of a derelict manor, demands we undergo a rethinking of reality. This isn't just about authorship. It's about a clandestine operation of societal engineering. In this thrilling alternate realization, the Globe Theatre was not a place of mere entertainment, but the most sophisticated psychological laboratory of the Tudor state. The ledger reveals a series of clandestine payments, from Sir Francis Walsingham's intelligence budget to a William of Stratford, for the express purpose of molding the common mind. Imagine the weight of this revelation. Richard III was not a historical inquiry, but a targeted character assassination designed to solidify the Tudor claim by demonizing the Yorkists. Macbeth was not a tragedy of ambition, but a calculated warning to any who would dare contemplate the regicide of a divinely appointed monarch. As modern forensic linguists analyze the encrypted margins of the First Folio, they find a chilling pattern of state-mandated ciphers. The bard was not an independent artist, but the ultimate agent of the Tudor state, a spin doctor whose medium was the iambic pentameter. This atmospheric shift in our understanding of the Elizabethan era portrays the court not as a center of culture, but as a surveillance state that mastered the theater of the mind. To witness the cinematic detail of this revelation is to see the Virgin Queen's reign through a terrifyingly modern lens, a regime that realized long before the 20th century that he who controls the narrative controls the kingdom. If the bard was an agent, then every soliloquy we have memorized for 5 centuries was a tool of royal propaganda, a ghost-written script for the masses. The shocking pivot from poet to operative forces us to ask, how much of our cultural identity is actually a 500-year-old state secret? This discovery doesn't just change the past. It shatters the foundation of our literary heritage, leaving us to grapple with a world where the greatest writer in history was the Crown's most effective spy. The clinical sterility of the 21st century laboratory stands in jarring contrast to the hallowed, incense-heavy air of Westminster Abbey. Yet it is here, amidst the microscopic strands of extracted ancient DNA, that the ultimate Tudor secret has finally been unspooled. For centuries, the House of Tudor rested its legitimacy on a fragile bridge to the Plantagenets, a claim cemented on the bloody fields of Bosworth. But as modern genomic sequencing maps the Y-chromosomal lineage of the Tudor men, a shocking pivot in our understanding of the monarchy has emerged. The results are not merely a footnote. They are a genetic bombshell that threatens to uproot the entire English royal tree. The investigation, conducted under unprecedented security, focused on the remains believed to be those of the Tudor patriarchs. Historians have long whispered about the non-paternal event, a polite term for ancient infidelity, but the data provides a thrilling, undeniable proof of a biological break. The genetic markers do not align with the House of Beaufort. Somewhere in the shadowed hallways of the 15th century, a secret was kept that would alter the fate of millions. The man we knew as Henry VII, the architect of a new age, may have possessed no biological claim to the throne he seized. Rethinking reality through this lens is a dizzying exercise in historical vertigo. If the Tudor bloodline was a fabrication, then the Reformation, the defeat of the Spanish Armada, and the very foundation of the modern British state were built upon a biological fiction. We are forced to confront a cinematic alternate history, a world where the crown stayed with the House of York, or where the Stuart succession never occurred because the bridge to them was never genetically sound. This revelation transforms the great matter of Henry VIII from a theological dispute into a desperate, perhaps subconscious, struggle against a looming genetic void. As the news reverberates from the laboratories to the halls of Parliament, the legal implications are staggering. This is more than a discovery. It is a profound disruption of the national narrative. The Virgin Queen and the Sun King of the English Renaissance were the scions of a ghost lineage. In the face of this DNA evidence, the past is no longer a static tapestry. It is a living, breathing crisis that demands we reevaluate every law, every title, and every triumph achieved under the Tudor rose. The halls of the High Court of Justice in London, usually a bastion of measured decorum, have become the epicenter of a thrilling constitutional earthquake that threatens to dismantle the very foundations of the Western legal tradition. Following the genetic bombshell that proved a definitive mismatch in the Tudor Y chromosome, the world is witnessing a shocking pivot from academic historical debate to an unprecedented legal crisis. This is no longer merely a matter for dusty archives or television documentaries. It is a total rethinking of reality for the modern British state and its global commonwealth. At the heart of this unfolding storm lies a terrifying, fundamental question. If the Tudor dynasty was built upon a biological lie and a fraudulent claim to the throne, does the legal architecture they erected over a century of rule still possess any validity? The stakes are nothing short of astronomical. Every act of Parliament, every aristocratic land grant, and the very establishment of the Church of England itself originated from the royal prerogative of monarchs, whose legitimacy is now mathematically disproven. In this alternate present, constitutional lawyers are grappling with the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine on a staggering national scale. If Henry VIII's great matter was a fraudulent seizure of power based on a false lineage, then the subsequent break from Rome and the dissolution of the monasteries could be viewed, legally speaking, as the largest unauthorized property heist in human history. We find ourselves in a cinematic standoff between 5 centuries of established precedent and a single, undeniable strand of ancient DNA. The atmosphere in London is thick with the weight of the taken path, the history we thought we knew versus the cold, hard reality we are now forced to acknowledge. International markets are reeling as the validity of the British Crown's sovereign debt, historically tied to the legal continuity of the realm, is called into question by global creditors and nervous stakeholders. This is the ultimate what-if scenario realized, a world where the ink on a royal decree from 1533 can trigger a total collapse of 21st century law. As we peer into this legislative void, we are forced to wonder if the modern world is merely a ghost, haunting a house whose foundations were never truly owned by its occupants. The revelation has effectively turned the entire Tudor era into a crime scene, and the trial of the millennium has only just begun, promising to rewrite the rules of power forever. The legal tremors of the DNA findings were merely the surface cracks in a collapsing edifice. Beneath the weight of centuries-old statutes lies a shocking pivot that forces a complete rethinking of reality. The discovery of the Order of the Obsidian Rose. This thrilling revelation, unearthed from the moisture-damaged ledgers of a hidden sub-basement beneath the old Palace of Richmond, suggests that the Tudor dynasty was not the absolute authority history recorded. Instead, England was guided by a clandestine shadow court, a secret society of architects, navigators, and thinkers who viewed the monarchs as mere figureheads for a much larger geopolitical experiment. This group, led by a shifting roster of intellectual titans, including clandestine figures linked to John Dee and the inner circle of Thomas Cromwell, operated with a terrifying efficiency that bypasses our traditional understanding of the Privy Council. When we examine the sudden shifts in the Reformation or the precision of the Elizabethan surveillance state, we are seeing the fingerprints of a group that mastered the art of statecraft centuries before the term existed. This is the cinematic realization of a hidden hand. The Obsidians did not care for titles, only for the trajectory of the nation. They were the ones who truly engineered the fall of the monasteries, not for the king's greed, but to fund a global intelligence network that persists in various guises to this day. The implications are staggering. If the Tudor monarchy was a theatrical production managed by an unelected elite, then the very concept of the divine right of kings was the most successful propaganda campaign in human history. We are forced into a shocking pivot of perspective, viewing the legendary temper of Henry VIII or the calculated virginity of Elizabeth I as scripted maneuvers designed by the shadow court to consolidate power. This discovery doesn't just change our past, it challenges the legitimacy of the structures that currently govern us. As forensic historians peel back the layers of wax and parchment, the question remains, did the shadow court ever truly disband, or did they simply migrate into the modern corridors of power, hidden behind the same veils of secrecy they perfected 500 years ago? The narrative of English history has been cracked wide open, revealing a clockwork mechanism of control that is as chilling as it is brilliant. The revelation of the Order of the Obsidian Rose acts as the final chilling hammer blow to our traditional understanding of the Tudor era. For centuries, we have been captivated by the charismatic tyranny of Henry VIII and the calculated brilliance of Elizabeth I, viewing them as the sole architects of their destinies. However, this shocking pivot into the reality of a shadow court dismantles that narrative entirely. We are forced into a profound rethinking of reality. The Tudor monarchs were not the players, but the pieces. This discovery suggests that the geopolitical landscape of Europe was sculpted by a clandestine meritocracy that manipulated bloodlines and religious schisms with the cold precision of a grandmaster. The weight of this revelation is not merely academic, it is existential. It forces us to confront the terrifying possibility that our modern institutions, born from these ancient maneuvers, remain beholden to unseen agendas. In this cinematic reimagining of the past, we see the great matter and the Virgin Queen's reign not as the whims of powerful individuals, but as tactical deployments by a secret society. This thrilling exposure of a 500-year-old silence challenges the very foundations of British sovereignty and legal continuity. If the laws of the land were forged by the order rather than the crown, the modern legal crisis becomes an insurmountable tectonic shift. We are left staring at a history that is far more fragile and manipulated than we ever dared to imagine. As we close this epic inquiry, we must reflect on the fragility of our own timeline. Our perception of freedom and progress rests upon a narrative that has just been proven to be a carefully constructed facade. The Order of the Obsidian Rose reminds us that history is not merely a record of what happened, but a curated selection of what we were permitted to know. As the seals on these final documents break, the echo of the Tudor age is no longer a distant whisper, but a roar that demands we question everything we believe about power, truth, and the unseen hands that guide the world. The secrets are out, and history will never be the same again.